I thank all the speakers over here and would wishes post-COVID. We are meeting in a virtual for the first time on a virtual platform during AIS. Can you see my screen, please?
Yes.
Yeah. So my topic has been optimizing outcome in coexisting cataract and corneal problems. I have no financial interest, and I am really thankful and obliged to Dr. Manoj for giving me this opportunity. Yeah. So the question is, why should we look for the conditions wherein we have to look at the ocular surface? This is because we come across with unhappy patients post cataract and IOL surgery. Nowadays, we know that IOL surgery is more a refractive surgery. And more so, the patients are unhappy because when they are spending more, they expect more. So they don't want to have problems post cataract surgery. They want that everything should be uneventful and like what they were at 20, 30 years of age, they should be able to see that vision. So, and really we can impart them too if we are very careful. So this is what is the course and this talk upon. Blurring of vision at distance and near could be due to the residual refractive error. And this could be due to the inaccurate IL power calculation. And this inaccurate IL power calculation could be the resultant of the unhappy, the corneal problems, meibomian gland problems, and problems related to the calculation of the IL power. Now, someone has not taken it seriously, and all these things will, everything will come and it will land on the unhappy IL patient in our OPD and in the waiting area, which we don't want. Patient if complaints of fluctuating vision, especially when reading, this could be due to dry eye. Glare and halo mainly due to related to the IOL, but could be due to dry eye as well. And there is a decreased contrast sensitivity, which is exacerbated by the ocular surface disorders. Ocular surface conditions like lid abnormalities, the presence of entropion, ectropion, and meibomian gland problems, and corneal degenerations could be present like Salzmann and pterygium, Salzmann nodule and pterygium, or maybe spheroidal degeneration. Patient can have dry eye, blepharitis, meibomian gland disorders, anterior corneal dystrophies like epithelial basement membrane dystrophy, and corneal ectatic disorders, mainly astigmatism, which has not been taken care of. Coming to the dry eye, cataract surgery can exacerbate dry eye because of the use of topical medications post-operative period, because they have the preservatives and frequent use is suggested. Then corneal incisions, they can lead to they can damage the nerves, and they can also induce the dry eye. And the eye post-surgery is in a pro-inflammatory post-operative status. So due to this, there is a propensity for the development of dry eye. There are the potential problems are inaccurate IOL power calculation, and there is a leading to the residual refractive error. So if the patient's dry eye condition is pre-operative and which has been missed, it can lead to inaccurate IOL power calculation, and this can ultimately land into patient into residual refractive error. Then there is a blurred vision, fluctuating vision, glare or halo, and decreased contrast sensitivity, which could be there due to dry eye. So the pre-operative identification of dry eye is very important. And if we are taking the patient for the premium surgery like multifocal, trifocal IOL or a toric IOL, then we should always treat these cases first, and then after normalizing the surface, then we should plan for the surgery. And for this, we should take the history of any systemic disease, any medication, and we should examine the patient thoroughly, do topography. As you can see, the topography tells us the Myers which are irregular in this case. In this particular case, and we should alarm us that this is not the right candidate for the multifocal IOL. And fluorescein lecement green or rose Bengal green staining will help us in guiding us in presence of the dry eye. Role of diagnostic testing like tear osmolarity and MMP9 are also available, and which will guide us to how to treat further. Treatment is using the preservative-free artificial tear, warm compresses, omega-3 fatty acids systemically, topical cyclosporin 0.05% or Xiidra or Liftigrast can be added to the preoperative treatment. Low potency topical steroid also is very helpful. Use of punctal plugs, autologous serum. It all depends after the evaluating the patient on slit lamp examination and in dry eye clinic, then we can treat these patients accordingly. And these are the condition of meibomian gland dysfunction. Lot of fatty discharge is there, which is coats the surface. Manage them beforehand using the eyelid scrub and warm compresses. Use topical antibiotics, azithromycin, 1%, low potency topical steroids, omega-3 supplements, oral doxycycline, minoxycycline, or azithromycin. Maybe we can give it 3 weeks prior to the surface. Coming to the epithelial basement dystrophy, which are very subtle, but it can be missed by a general ophthalmologist or early young ophthalmologist. Most common anterior corneal, this is the most common anterior corneal dystrophy. Map-like changes seen in most patients. There is a negative staining with fluorescein, vision affected by irregular astigmatism and scarring, and can get worse after the IOL implantation. Key is to see it and tell the patient about it before surgery, and maybe if the OCT topography is seen, then this is the dystrophy on OCT, anterior segment OCT, which we can see, and this is the patient after laser treatment of this and the post-treatment epithelial basement dystrophy has been disappeared. So we did surface laser treatment for this. Another condition is Salzmann nodular degeneration. As you can see here, there is a single nodule, and on the bottom picture there are confluent nodules which are present on the almost covering half of the cornea. And we all know that they induce very high astigmatism. They are gray-white elevated nodular lesion, usually in the mid-periphery or periphery. They are not present in the pupillary area mostly. The more common in females. No clear etiology can be associated with MGD and ocular surface inflammation, although often there is no associated disease, and it causes great amount of irregular astigmatism. So this is the topography Placido disc before and after the treatment. After scraping the nodule, you see that cornea has become, irregularity of the cornea has disappeared. Coming to another common problem, which is pterygium, which we commonly see. And if you manage the pterygium beforehand, remove it, do the surgery, and after 1 to 3 months post-surgery, you can remove, after removing the pterygium, you can perform the surgery. This is the image of Placido and Placido disc image of with the patient's irregular Myers, and it causes irregular astigmatism on topography. And even a subtle pterygium like this at the bottom can induce astigmatism, like you can see the change in the irregularity of the Meyer. This is a very interesting case. We did a multifocal IOL for this patient in one eye. Later on, she came for the other eye, and we found that the patient is having pterygium. And this, due to this pterygium, the patient has induced astigmatism with the rule astigmatism of 1.52 diopters at steep meridian at 69 degree. So after this, we did a pterygium surgery, and after the pterygium surgery was done, and after 3 months of the pterygium surgery, or rather 4 months of the pterygium surgery, the astigmatism came down to 0.5 diopter. So such patients, as you can see here, this is the area of pterygium, and this is the multifocal IOL which we have implanted. The patient is happy after that. So if preoperative assessment is done correctly and explained to the patient really understand it. And then comes the corneal opacity. This is the patient with adherent glaucoma. And most of these cases, we have a good amount of clear corneal with us through which we can do the phacoemulsification surgery. The trick is that capsular axis should remain continuous under the area of opacity. We should not leave the leading edge or the edge with which we are holding the capsular axis. And a phacoemulsification is done. You will see that I'm pulling the nucleus in the area where the clear cornea is available to us, through which we can do the phacosurgery. Our excursion or the movement of phacoemulsification should be small enough. We should not go to the periphery. So this is how we can perform the surgery, even in the presence of corneal opacity. Now, one case I will show you that in this particular case, the cornea was hazy and diffuse haze central was there. So we use retrochandelier illumination, and this is how we can we are able to see. The good part is that we get a very good reflex because the illumination is from the hind side, from the vitreous side, and we got very good red reflex, which otherwise would have been impossible. And it helps us, it guides us in doing a capsular axis and phacoemulsification. We just have to get oriented to the depth perception in this particular, when we are using retroillumination instead of microscope anterior illumination. And this is a chandelier, so the whole globe shines from behind. And thanks to Dr. Dhananjay Shukla for giving me this chandelier illumination system for this surgery. And then and after, I am using it regularly in cases of corneal opacity and cataract, and it makes my life very, very comfortable and easy. And I feel it to be very, very safe in performing it. Otherwise, it becomes very difficult to perform the surgery when you have a central diffuse corneal haze or corneal opacity. So take-home message is, look for ocular surface pathology carefully, pre-operatively in all cataract patients, more so in premium IL patients. Ocular surface disease is often the source of symptoms in our unhappy post-operative patients. And corneal topography and Placido rings can provide valuable information before taking the patient for surgery. Optimizing the ocular surface before, during, and after surgery may give surgeons the best chance at providing patients with the wow effect. With proper diligence and care, one can successfully perform phaco in cases of corneal opacity. Fortunately, in majority of cases, there is enough clear cornea to perform phaco. Visual outcome in these cases are less than optimal, which we have to explain to our patients beforehand, and we should take informed consent. Patients gain enough vision to enable them to carry out their daily activities. One should be prepared to convert to ECC or SICS as per